will call this meeting to order then. Today is Thursday, March 5th, and this is the meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee. And I believe we have a roll call. Thank you, Ms. Honest.
Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Ms. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Constant?
Here.
Mr. Dunbar?
Here.
Ms. Salatel? Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And then we have lots of other people to introduce to put on the record. So we'll start with who all's on the table. So
Dean Gates, Assembly Council.
Jason Brandeis, I'm the attorney for Top Shelf Herbs of Alaska.
Mark Fazio, I'm one of the owners of Top Shelf Alaska. My partner's running late, so he might walk in here at the last minute, or he might be here after it's over.
it's fine. Thanks.
Ryan Yale, Planning Department.
Mandy Honest, Clerk's Office.
Thank you. And we got your interpreters. Yes, thank you.
Dave Richfield, Planning.
I'm intern to Assembly Council.
Tammy Wanzel, Circle Plumbing and Heating.
Mike Ritzler, Circle Plumbing. Ed Toll, Public, just here to observe.
Thank you.
Steve Oath, I have the House of Green.
Dan Olsen.
Rob Merchant, Board Meeting.
Bob Dole, building official.
Chris Shooting, Director of Economic Development.
Jeffrey Hickman, Anchorage Health Department.
Great. All right, thank you, everybody. So the first thing on our list today, if we're just going to stick with the order of business that we have on our agenda, is Top Shelf Herbs. So, which is a new marijuana application, and Ms. Honest, you want to start us off with the licensing, please?
Yes. So Top Shelf Herbs for retail license application. The general license conditions were addressed in their operating plan. There were no taxes, fees, or fines found due by either licensee. They addressed all of the safety and security requirements in the operating plan, and they also addressed all of the retail license specific requirements in the operating plan. There were no additional conditions recommended for the license.
Great, thank you. So, Ryan, Mr. Yell, you want to give us the rest of the information then?
New committee members.
Oh,
Hi.
okay, thank you.
I'm Chisholm Lineback with Top Shelf Herbs of Alaska.
All right,
And yeah, sorry I was a little late. I had
No,
to drop
you're-
off my wife
you're-
and my daughter at school. And
You're just in time, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a request for a special land use permit for marijuana retail sales establishment within a B3 district. The site is located northwest of the intersection of Photo Avenue and North Star Street. The proposed establishment will be located within an existing commercial structure, and approximately 1,008 square feet of available building space will be dedicated to marijuana retail. This retail sales establishment will be open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. until midnight. We did have condition number 7 added to the Assembly resolution in regards to differences between the plans that were submitted to the Planning Department and those submitted to Building Safety. However, those have that concern has been resolved as of 2 days ago. We did receive the correct plans. So if the committee or the full Assembly would like to remove condition 7, we have no objection to that. The use is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan and the West Anchorage district plan, and we would recommend approval subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report.
Yeah, great, thank you. Questions at this point, or would we just, go ahead, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I saw that there's like over 6,000 square feet, but you're only going to use around 1,000 for the retail shop.
correct. Yes, sir.
Are you planning to have a cultivation?
No, sir. Just
What-
retail.
What's the other 5,000 square feet?
They're
It's
upstairs.
upstairs. It's there's an attorney's office and an accountant office. It's upstairs, CPA.
Oh, I see. Oh, all right.
And so they cover the rest of the square footage.
All right. And so is there a rental apartment in the building or?
No, but the attorneys upstairs are using one of the offices downstairs, so we were forced to put a wall and an entry in for them. So they have a storage area for, their cleaning stuff or whatsoever.
Okay.
So,
All right,
I think
thanks.
it's only 40 something.
3,200.
It's only, the building is 3,200 square feet total.
Oh, really? That's 6,000 or something. Well, the lot might have been 6,200.
Yeah, 'cause it's a big-
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Oil.
Couple questions. One is on page 39. You have your
picture your space. And it notes an area that is for after-hours customer serving area.
Yeah, we put I can show you a picture, but we're putting a bulletproof window and a little box under a door that in the wintertime hours when it's dark, we're back in an alley that you can walk in, get carded, and they'll be able to look at monitors and purchase only from 8 to midnight through a bulletproof window.
So after hours doesn't mean after they're closed, late at night, like still within.
From 8 to closing.
Time window.
So there'll still be a person there to card people.
Absolutely, always
We're just
have
closing the
purpose.
store in the back area, so the main store itself will be closed, so all they can do is come into the front customer entrance and actually walk up to the bulletproof window to go to purchase product.
To go vestibule.
So yeah, we'll have monitors in our waiting room, and then we'll have monitors on our sale floor. And because we have 2 registers, we're only allowed 10 people in our sales floor at a time, so I have to wait in the waiting room. Our guard has to keep them back. But like I said, when winter comes and it's dark, we're not going to let people in the sales floor. We're just going to let them purchase through a bulletproof window. We got a bulletproof little hand box. You put the product in, close it, and then they can open it for the safety, because it's pretty transient there, and we're in a back alley at night. We're just trying to keep it as safe as possible for our customer, number one, and definitely for our employees.
That'll take some more.
Yeah, I got another one. So, is it Lime Pack?
Yes, sir.
Lime Pack?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you had a misdemeanor a couple of years ago for a drug-related thing. And in license restrictions, it says misdemeanor crime involving a controlled substance, ... within the last 5 years, and this was like 2017. So, are you stuck? What's the status?
Yeah, I can address that. So the license regulations, the municipalities' restrictions on prior criminal history sort of mirror the state restrictions. And the way the regulations are written, it states that if you have a felony conviction, that the definition of a felony conviction, well, let me start by saying Mr. Lineback's pled guilty to a charge and had the conviction set aside by the suspended imposition of sentence process, also known as SIS. So the conviction remains on your record, but essentially it is without most legal effect because it is set aside through this rehabilitative process. In terms of the marijuana regulations, when you read through them, where the regulations specify conviction of felony, you're not eligible for a license, and the definition specifies that in that paragraph, convictions of felony includes a suspended imposition of sentence. So if you have a suspended imposition of a felony for a sentence, doesn't matter, it's still considered a felony. Our interpretation of the regulations and the ordinances are that because it specifies that for a conviction of a felony, SIS is included in the definition, does not include that language in the sections about misdemeanors. Therefore, the legislative intent was to allow people that have misdemeanor convictions set aside to still be eligible for licensure. So this is an issue that we've been discussing with AMCO, and we have, at this point, AMCO is still working through it. We have had some informal analysis from the Assistant Attorney General who represents AMCO, who has agreed with us on the legal reasoning. We've actually got some additional information and a memo that I can distribute to you. It's a little lengthy, so it's not something you probably could read through it on the fly at the moment. But essentially what we're dealing with is that Mr. Lineback does have a conviction from April 2018 that has been set aside by the SIS process.
Maybe follow up. Our code doesn't say anything about a conviction or anything. It says a misdemeanor crime involving a controlled substance. What I see here is a misdemeanor crime involving a controlled substance. It doesn't,
But it doesn't-
SIS and so on doesn't play in. I mean, it's clearly a crime. I mean, he may have pled this or that and went through the court, but there was clearly a crime.
Well, so in general, when a conviction is set aside by SIS, it essentially loses most, if not all, of its legal effect, right? So it's not supposed to preclude people from certain types of employment or licensing. That's the point of having a conviction that is set aside. It remains on your record, but you complete a probationary period, and then the legal effect of that is set aside. In the Anchorage Municipal Code, in section D1, it talks about felonies, conviction of a felony, and says that conviction of a felony includes suspended imposition of sentence. And then the next two sections, which talk about a misdemeanor crime involving a controlled substance, or section D3, which talks about a class A misdemeanor, both of those specifically do not state anything about SIS. And when you apply the canons of statutory construction, when something is specifically included in one section and not listed in the others, that's intentional. So if the code is saying in this section conviction of a felony includes suspended imposition of sentence, and they don't say it in the others, that means that conviction of a felony or conviction in the other sections doesn't include the SIS.
Anything else?
Just the deed.
Okay. And do you have a comment on that, Mr. Davis?
Yes, I have that code in front of me now as well. Well, first of all, I appreciate that this is disclosed transparently, so that's important. And I think that everything Mr. Brandeis has said describing what our code says is correct. And his analysis, it sounds correct to me, but I would like to verify as well, and perhaps send some advice to the committee members afterwards. And I was interested in what AMCO literally had to say, but my instinct is that Mr. Brandeis sounds correct as in his application of Maxim's legislative interpretation of legislative history. So I think this sounds okay, but I will verify it.
Thank you. Mr. Dunbar, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm curious about, so you're still before AMCO on this issue, or you haven't been given granted a license yet?
So so the license was preliminarily approved, so approved with delegation by AMCO in early November. And in a sort of interesting timing circumstance, the public comment period did not end until after the license had already been approved. So a public comment was submitted after the license had been preliminarily approved. A member of the public brought up this issue with the criminal conviction and basically said that this is inappropriate. This person's not eligible for a license. So we went back in front of the AMCO board and had this discussion, and the AMCO board at the last meeting in January essentially pulled back the initial approval and tabled it pending their discussion of this matter. So they're going to essentially, they're in the middle of coming to their formal conclusion, and then they will announce a decision at the April AMCO meeting.
Can I have a follow-up for that? Sure. So, I mean, first of all, even if you're granted at AMCO, we have an independent ability to analyze, to interpret our own regulation. But aside from that, I'm just curious what the legal effect would be. Let's say AMCO says that no, after all, this owner cannot be on this license.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to start over from the beginning, or can you swap out a different owner, or just revert to a single owner?
Well, I think that's a good question, and I don't know how AMCO would handle that. I think this is sort of a unique, novel situation at this point. I think one aspect of it is that I think we believe that our legal analysis is on point, so Mr. Lineback is eligible. So I think we would pursue all legal remedies to make sure that he remains eligible as a licensee. But certainly changing up the ownership is a possibility.
We'll wait 3 years.
Anything else, Mr. Webb?
No.
And if it would be helpful, as I mentioned, I do have a memo kind of explaining this. If you'd like, I could just distribute that and you could read it later. But, yeah.
And Mr. Constantine, just checking in with you. I know you're not shy about chiming in, but just want to make sure we're not missing you with any comments.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to say on this. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing the conversation.
Okay, thank you. So, any other comments or questions? Anything else, gentlemen, from you either? So, okay. So what would be the recommendation of the committee at this point?
Sort of on hold until we find out what happens with the state, I think, don't we?
Yeah,
Or Dean's analysis.
Or Dean's
We can do
analysis,
that.
right.
Is this before us on the 10th or the 24th?
Does this already have a date? Oh, on this week, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is next week.
So I would expect us to postpone it.
It's already on.
Let's just, Ryan, do you have a comment?
I don't have any issue or any objection to a postponement. This really affects the license. It doesn't really affect the special land use permit, so.
I think it would be wise to wait to see what happens with the state and for Dean's analysis. We do mirror their regulations, and so I think getting their information and combining with Dean's is probably the best route to making sure that the assembly has all the information.
Okay. And Mr. Schuette's got a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it would probably be ideal if we actually open the public testimony since it's been advertised as being a public testimony night.
Oh, yeah.
But then, as Mr. Dunbar indicated, we can continue with public hearing to a later date.
So what about now Jason's got information, send it to Mandy, and Mandy can distribute all of it?
Right.
So this was what was just handed out.
Okay.
I can.
Oh, this fact.
Mhm.
It's nice to get emails. Do you have that email?
I can email that to you.
I think the protocol would be send it to Mandy, and
Okay.
she can distribute.
Yeah, I
all
brought
of
hard
it.
copies just because we'll show the protocol of getting it.
No, that's fine, that's handy too, but, so, to get to all the other assembly members.
Okay, Mr. Gates.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the title of this memo, potential objection. Is this the only issue that you anticipated a possible objection?
Yeah.
No other issues? Thank you.
Okay.
So can I ask a question? then,
Yes,
in
sir,
terms
go ahead.
Of process, so if I'm understanding correctly, you're suggesting still holding public taking public testimony on this coming week, and then postponing the actual assembly action, or continuing public testimony and the assembly vote at a later date, so there'll be no vote next week.
Correct.
We don't know
Yeah,
that.
well, we don't know for sure, that's true, because we have to actually vote to postpone it. But we would start off with, because it's been publicly noticed on our agenda, we'll open it up for public hearing. And then
Mhm.
somebody will move to continue public hearing until the next meeting, which would be March 24th. And,
Well, I'm sorry, we maybe later, because if.
well, that's true too, and it could be even later if we have other information that says we don't have all the information that we need back yet, which, like you said, yeah, the AMCO meeting's not till
The second.
April.
April
The
2nd.
2nd, okay, okay.
First meeting.
So we can figure that date out on Tuesday for sure. But again, it is a process that has to be voted on. But I can't imagine that it would actually end up getting voted on that day without the information that we know we have coming forward. So, Mr. Gates?
I don't intend to hold up with this at all. I will get you my analysis by close of business Friday or maybe Monday at the latest. So before the Tuesday night meeting. You wouldn't have, I guess, the committee vote recommendation, but that's the sole issue. You could, for example, make a recommendation that one condition be removed and the license be approved pending, I guess, resolution of the misdemeanor conviction issue.
That's true.
For example.
And one of the requirements is the state license, so should the body decide they wanted to go ahead with the Muni license, there would still be the requirement of the state license being issued as well, so.
Before they could open, right, or operate, right. So, Ryan?
And just kind of piggybacking off that as well, I mean, special land use permit is tied to the license and the state license as well, so any one of those three items becomes void or expires or isn't granted, all three are kind of out.
So we could approve it conditionally anyway. Well, I could.
Because that would be simpler to move on, but but we might, we have Jason's, Mr. Brandeis's analysis, we'll have something from Mr. Gates, and then it'd be interesting, if we do that, there may be something in AMCO's analysis. I mean, have you seen something like this before where they postpone it and then, I mean, maybe they would allow it, but their discussion may not be compelling for us. I mean, AMCO's AMCO and we're not, you know, but we don't know. We've never seen such a thing. It's all new.
Okay. Well, I think for your purposes, we would just suggest that you be there on Tuesday night, and we'll have to just kind of go through, you know, our process as well. But, right? Anything else?
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
there's a chance we might not be tabled till the 3rd, which would be Wednesday too. We don't know if we're gonna be addressed on Tuesday or
So you figure that.
Of April. You're talking about
AMCO,
that.
the building.
Right, okay.
Meeting, that's all.
Okay. Well, if we postpone from the meeting on Tuesday, chances are we would postpone into April, which is like the 14th. Yes.
I guess the question would be, you know, whether it has to come back to this committee
No.
first or just to the next.
Well, I guess it could technically. I mean, the rest of the assembly could ask that it come back to this committee. That doesn't happen too often, but
It wouldn't be an automatic.
but yeah, we just need the full assembly to kind of make all those decisions, and that starts on Tuesday night.
Right. Okay.
My best guess. Okay, all right then. Well, thank you very much, and we will see how the rest of this goes on Tuesday. Appreciate that, and yeah, we've got some information coming to us, so we'll talk about it Tuesday.
Thank you
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time.
Okay, now the next fun thing to talk about. We might, I'm wondering if we need to kind of open the door and let people know that we're on this topic in the hall. It seems like there are quite a few people waiting out there. But, sorry. So anyway, we're going to talk about the fee increases. So I know Mr. Doyle, you'll want to be up here with us, and I'm sure Mr. Schutte.
Actually, it's just Dole today. I have to be Van White. Van White.
All right. Oh, you have, okay, we're up online behind us here.
This isn't mine, for the record, they're coming. I remember those days.
Okay, so, Mr. Dole, would you like to just lead us off here on this, please?
Yes, please. For the record, I'm Bob Dole, building official for the municipality of Anchorage. I'm going to give a brief overview of how we got here, how these disclosure and the issues of those inspections we're looking at now. Joining me at the table is Linda Brooks, administrative manager and fiscal guru for the department. Next slide, please. We're looking at slide 2 for those on the line, why were fee changes needed. The short answer, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, is we were out of money, it was time to think. The department is supposed to be self-sustaining for building safety service area activities, plan reviews or inspections. It hadn't been, except for 3 of the last 15 years. A change was necessary, and we went about going about how to remedy that, given the Building Safety Service Fund was going deeper and deeper, faster and faster. The new ordinance that this group passed took effect January 1st of 2020. Next slide, please. Aside from the fiscal failure of the prior approach, I say that because taxpayers were subsidizing BSSA services, taxpayers muni-wide, there were other problems with those too. They were not adjusted for inflation, so what worked in 2009 kept losing value in terms of what we had to pay for as we went forward, going forward. But we created a very regressive fee structure, in particular with flat fees. By regressive, I mean smaller projects would pay disproportionately compared to larger ones. A small business owner with a $35,000, $50,000 re-roof, and ASD with a $2 million re-roof would pay the same $500 flat fee. What that means when there's a larger scope of work for that larger job there, that a small business owner was subsidizing that big operator. There's also an interesting lack of what I call horizontal equity in our structure that existed, and that some activities were favored more than others in terms of how the fee structure was constructed. I think the cleanest one we can look at, well, we have one up there, and you can see the numbers there. If you do new construction for 2.9 million, you'd be looking at 23 grand in permit fees. On the other hand, if you were doing renovation, you're looking at 9 grand, just about 30% of that. And if you're spending that much on a re-roof, you're spending $500. And you do that multiplier, you can see we created a bias of you paying 46 times more or 47 times more for new construction than for a re-roof, with commensurate labor and work costs involved. In short, in looking at the principles of sound fiscal policy, we have significant structural issues. As a result, this body passed AO 219-116S. I'm now looking at the next page that goes to key changes in AO 219-116S, page 3. And those changes went about doing several things. Basically, I said we went back to the future. We went back overall to a valuation model for all permit fees, as had been done in the municipality from 2000 before the 2009 fee change. And in doing that, we also aligned with the rest of the predominant practice in the rest of the nation. There are some flat fees done in some jurisdictions, but overwhelmingly, valuation is the model out there as being the most equitable and avoiding those horizontal inequities and those regressive things that we looked at on the last slide. We went with that with one key change, the flat fees for, and this was by assembly member amendment for the residential remodels 40,000 and underneath. By doing that, the desire was to create a means for an owner of a home doing their own work, needing 1 or 2 inspections, to pay a lower fee. What we in effect did there was we retained the old remodeling process of per inspection purchases, of per inspection for under 40,000, and otherwise went to valuation for everything else. In doing that, we followed the per inspection for remodels, which AHDA and those many in the room supported and said we needed to stick with. We did 2 key changes, though, that were recommended by former building official Ron Thompson along the way. 1, we updated the numbers for inflation, and 2, we eliminated the half-hour inspection going to 1-hour inspections, as was identified previously needed to be done. In doing that, we created a more rational fee structure and also created a means to fill the fiscal hole we were in. Next slide, please, which is slide 4, other key changes. These are all bullets that from previous briefings we disclosed to the legislature when the briefings we did in the work sessions along the way. You can see the references there for commercial re-roofs going back to the pre-19 practice of project valuation. You can see plan reviews explain that they're going from the flat fee to the valuation, as again done 2009, before the 2009 fee ordinance. These are nothing new. These are what we talked about last fall before this went forward. Moving forward to inspection changes, which is page 5. The big issue was we eliminated the half-hour inspection consistent with Ron's 12/12/2014 memo going forward. And otherwise, we adjusted the base rate inspection fee from $150, which was based on a 2011 calculation, to $175 to catch it up with inflation and the added cost. We also added a second re-inspection fee when a second re-inspection is necessary for the same work with nothing else being looked at of $350. The first one is free, but the second one went up to that amount. And in doing that, we took care of a large drain on the department in the form of the timekeeping requirements for tracking all the half-hour inspections. and the time that was taking our inspectors. Turning to slide 6.
So just, can you go back for a moment?
Yes, sir.
So the second to last bullet added 350 is that fee or free?
I'm sorry.
The 350 second reinspection, if he has a question on.
Does that say fee or should that be second free?
Well, the second reinspection, the first reinspection is free. So if the first one is free, the second one is where this would kick in.
Okay.
So basically, by the time you get to the second one, you're also paying for the one that was free before.
All right.
And that only kicks in if there's nothing else for them to do. Frequently on a commercial job, there's other things to look at. More often on a residential, they come to a dead halt where this is coming to be because we don't work in the same phases the same way. We have various numbers here. We have got a request for permit numbers and inspections that we've provided here. If you have any specifics, we can go into it, or you're welcome to contact us afterwards. But this gives you an idea of the numbers of inspections we're looking at for different areas. One of the takeaways, although we changed fees, nothing in the fee schedule changed the type of inspections we're doing. And we did get a query on that. Previously, before 2016, the second reinspection on a trade permit was free. That went away in 2016 when they went forward with the half hour change. We carried forward to 2016. Where we did create new inspections was this draft policy S10 that you have just seen up there appear on slide 7. About 2009, we ceased doing roofing inspections. I regard that as an abandonment of the official duties of the department. Doing that, my obligation is to ensure buildings are safe from the foundation up through the top. Yes, Dan?
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you mid-sentence, but just, so a definition on re-roofing, because we saw some, I don't know if we have it here, but the Ron Thompson sent out, I mean, you could just redo the, after 20 years or something, you rip off the I guess shingles, or I'm thinking commercial, the membrane. And then, but there's also re-roofing is that you would do structural stuff. So do we distinguish here?
Mr. Chair, we do not, and neither does the ICC. This is an option that was presented to me about 7 o'clock last night to try to carve out something different. We have not done well with local options in the past, designing a sustainable, viable fee system. And frankly, I do not see this one any better. The other problem is until it's more than one roofer in the audience, they can explain as you start, you don't know what you're getting into a roof till you skin it. So what starts as a simple membrane removal, and we're going to look at one of those shortly here, goes down, can turn to a lot more. But in doing that, the department was not meeting its obligations to assure building safety from the foundation up through the roof. They were stopping at basically the ceiling of the top floor. We were jeopardizing business owners' interest in the Building Code Enforcement Grading System 2 rating and associated insurance discounts. Because the ISO assesses us with a level 2 through the Division of Insurance filings, that earns business owners whose buildings are built in that time period about a 10% discount on their property casualty insurance, which is jeopardized if we can't demonstrate to the ISO that we have a sound inspection program and plan review issue going forward. Issues came to light and are continuing to come to light several a day now with the draft policy of permits being inconsistent with the scope of work, i.e. it starts as a skin it back and then they start substantially more reconstruction and quality of workmanship issues. The policy basically is what I call a no delay policy. That is, for the points where we want an inspection, they tell us what time to be out there. If we don't make it on time, they keep going. We recognize that a skinned roof is a vulnerable roof and a vulnerable building, and we won't hold those up. So we're following what we do with the on-site program. This gives us the option and the ability to inspect, but does not hold up progress on the roof. We're also, the remote video inspection policy letter went out this week that I have adopted for re-inspections, and my intent is to expand these as Clark County, where Las Vegas uses them for roofing inspections now. I have what appears to be some pushback from one roofing company who actually wants us out there live. We can accommodate that. But I'll tell you, with video inspections, you can dial up, and I can usually get somebody to do it right there, so those concerns are puzzling to me. And Clark County is one of the best rated building departments in the nation. If it works for them, I don't understand why it doesn't work for us. Received mixed public comment on this policy letter. I've received several comments from the roof community voicing concern about it. I've also received strong endorsements to take it even further, proposing moving it, including Eagle River Chubiak, which is beyond the scope, well beyond the scope of what we're going to do with the policy letter anytime soon, at least under this building official. And also a proposal that I basically offer a bounty for roofers to turn in other roofers and offer like $100 finder's fee, which I think is bad public policy, but if the assembly really wants it, I will do it under protest. Next slide, please. So what's driving this? If you look on the left there, you'll see that there's, and my apologies for those that may have trouble from this in reading it, you'll see the supplies on a contract invoice. We tried to redact info that would show the particular contractor and the particular project and the particular owner. If you look in the amount due in the bottom there, just the supplies before labor on that project were $170,000. That was on a $35,000 valuation permit. $35,000, but just on supplies, they put $170,000 into that project. It shows where we had lost situational awareness of what was really happening. In the contractor's defense, this grew into something more. They just never went back to a change order to report what they were getting into. It is an example of why actual site inspections are needed. On the right, you can see an example of one of the materials provided to us of poor workmanship. Just a side note on the contract invoice, I do maybe a half dozen inspect-alongs a year with my inspectors. Driving around, I stumbled across another one where a skinning had turned into removing everything and pulling out the wet and soiled insulation going forward. Because of the old policy of no inspections, we had no situational awareness of the structural and other work being done or the substandard work that drove this. Yes, sir.
I just want, so what you're saying here is in this particular project, when they ripped the skin off, as you say, then they found code problems.
That's my belief.
This project didn't.
Yes.
Do it
Yeah.
wrong. Okay.
This is wiring.
We'll get to that on the next page. Some of the things that happened, it went well beyond the skin. You don't need 200-something sheets of plywood and the other materials up there. It got away from them, and no one ever came back to say it got away from them. And we weren't there to realize what was going on either. And if we go to the next slide, please. Slide 9 is two more examples provided to us of problematic work out there. On the right, you can see where the roofers went in and in the process of redoing some of the substrate, the structural members, cut and spliced wires back together, added joist in well beyond the scope of work they were qualified to do. On the left, that started out as an unfortunate but simple chimney fire with one area of localized water damage and fire damage. What happened though was when they went in to do the repairs on it, they discovered the whole roof and structural members had been put in by a roofer and done not to code, or no permit, no disclosure. It just went in as unpermitted work. That grew that $25,000 repair to over $100,000 as the entire roof and the supporting structures had to be replaced. It's an example where, frankly, I believe my department should have known what was going on had they been going out there doing inspections, to know that this simple repair had just exponentially, the simple roofing initially exponentially exploded in scope.
Is this an Anchorage or you were?
This is an Anchorage. These are all inside the BSSA. Eagle River has the option to purchase permits and inspections, but that's maybe a half dozen a year that come out of there. So these are the examples of what's driving change. If we could go to slide 10, please.
Is it commercial or residential?
So, looking at, that one was residential. The one with the wiring was commercial. The one before that, I'm not sure, as I said here. Just the policy letters led to this influx every day of roofers showing pictures of what they found from other roofers. Looking at fees versus taxes, if you look at that slide we led off with dealing with the prior fee structure, the issues with it being regressive, the lack of fairness across the same price points, I didn't make up that stuff. A budgeting guide for local government is the ICC prescribed doctrine, if you will, on how we should analyze our fee structure to make sure it's fair and equitable. It's what really drives that valuation model nationwide. I think key in there too, though, is a point where, as a muni, we should have done better. While we had a series of acting building officials in my position, no one was doing, as you see on the right, that thinking, are these fees working? Does it make sense? What changes need to be? They talk about annually doing at least a reconciliation and periodically adjusting it. That wasn't happening for years and years. The only record I could find in there of a thoughtful analysis of it was Ron's, that's attached in the next 2 pages. That's why you're seeing the shop you are today, because ideally we would have been doing that as part of the director duties, at least on an annual basis. That's also why, in talking to those in the community here, my commitment is after I close out this year, I will look at the fees to be able to recommend what's going on for adjustments. But at this point, we have we've just tried to leap forward a decade, and we need to see what we have here going forward. And the caution there being, it's important, whoever's in the seat after me, that I recommend the assembly make sure they are doing that due diligence to keep up with the fees and to keep up with the discussion that has to happen. Otherwise, along the way, you see the taxpayer subsidies coming in that many in this room became accustomed to. You also create the sticker shock when you do get around to saying we got to get this right. Those are my opening comments. Stand by for any questions from the committee.
Great, thank you. Mr. Weather?
I would just, maybe for a moment, you've referred to Ron Thompson a couple of times. In case people don't know Ron's history, maybe give Ron a moment to say, because he was a building official before and so on, just give some context.
Great.
Yeah, those who don't know me, I'm Ron Thompson. I was a building official for 12, 15 years, quite a while back. I think my last, when I was official, not acting, was 2009 when I went to Public Works, but I came back in 2015 for 1 more year and was acting for a year prior to when I left the city. We're not in a major difference here with Bob. There's a lot of the things that he has and what he said is absolutely correct, except there's a couple of things. When we changed the fees in 2009 for re-roof, we didn't make re-roof inspections null and void. We made them available to the muni anytime they wanted to. They could show up at any stage throughout that process and make a look at it. So never was it intended to not do inspections. What it was there was issues with regard to Alaska, and there's issues with regard to getting up on a roof in Alaska in the snow and in the criteria. It makes it difficult. We had a lot of pushback from from our unions at that time about safety and access to the roofs. What we tried to do was make the re-roofs, which I believe it's a terminology issue. Re-roofs and roof renovations are 2 totally different scenarios. A re-roof is just scraping it off, putting the membrane back on, taking shingles off, putting shingles back on. The fee was set, so there could be inspection. I mean, if there's no inspection and the city had set the fee at $500-600, we were just taking money for nothing. No, that's not right. What we did was set it up to where we could get at least 1, if not 2 inspections in there, and it'd be covered, so they could get 1 inspection and come back. Fees were at $150 an inspection. The fee for a re-roof was $600, $500. So it was definitely set to cover the amount of time that it should take, and a little bit of plan review at the counter. The problem ends up being is what this ordinance redid was it took all re-roofs, whether it be roof renovations or not. And Bob did mention that the different, like ASD roofs. ASD roofs are roof renovation seismic upgrades. Those are not paid as a re-roof permit. Those are paid right now as a remodel permit under the guidelines, just like we say here, which is paying, and they have been paying $150 an inspection for every inspection. And some of those times, like West High's, like 100 inspections, they paid $15,000, I think, in extra fees for that. So it's not like those are what we're trying to do in the roofing industry here, and I'm kind of talking for them, and they can kind of tell their story a little bit, is it's the simple re-roofs. I mean, we can agree to calling for an inspection when we strip it off and they can see that there's no sheathing if we keep the price down low. But to get that inspection and still pay $5,000 for them to just say, okay, re-roof it and we'll be back at the final, to get that second inspection, it just seems disproportional for that. So what I tried to do is put a little bit of a guide together with regard to that. Just saying, let's define re-roofs, let's define roof renovations, and that can be modified and changed. And when we get that definition refined of what that means, and we get Bob's policy together with an inspection when we pull off the re-roof, then we have a policy that works, and we're paying a fee that is commensurate with the work. And that's what we're trying to do. What happened is Bob, and you know, there's times that probably in my case when I did fees like that, Bob, is we need some data to go. But in this case, it's too obvious to me to wait a year and pay, in some cases, for a commercial re-roof permit. We just did one that was $500 before 2019. It was $4,500 plus in 2020. That is, and that's strictly re-roof, no structural work, no anything. But if they find the structural work, then that's that inspection. They should say, go revise your permit, pay it by valuation, and submit it all that. But regardless of what the cost is, so it might cost $1 million for a re-roof, but that doesn't make your inspection any different if it's $50,000 or $1 million if it's a re-roof, as in a re-roof definition of just replacing the top. It's the renovation that should be billed and feed as Bob has talked about. And that's why I have put together this, and I did include it to Bob yesterday. I only gave it to you a day before. I only wrote it 2 days ago, so I know that everybody was saying, oh, it's last minute. I only just wrote it. I just had it and passed it around. And I have 15 copies of it here. And so anyway, you can pass these around. So then the only other area that we also included in there was I met with both the home builders and and some plumbers, contractors that have been getting not retro permits, but building permits for renovations. The issue for renovations, and I included, if you look in the second document, was the document that the building department provided when they did the fee changes. And so if you go to the second pages, that's residential remodels, there's 3 categories, and this is the gist of why we need to change. So if you look at the remodel calculations for the fees, and that's this document here, page 2, it actually was the building department's residential remodel inside the SSA.
Can you show us? We want to get oriented here.
Yes,
this is what
page, second page of that. Inside, there's 3 pages there, right? It's a dual document that's double-sided. Is it not?
The double-sided and yours is single?
Well, yeah, mine's single, but it should be double-sided with 3 pages total.
Yeah, we just have 2 pages, as far as I can tell.
Okay,
Oh, no, sorry.
so basically, the gist of it is, I don't know how it did.
What's the title? What's the title of your?
The first page says residential new homes inside the SSA. And so, so every one of them didn't have 3 pages. Okay, let me just kind of, so the calculation formula that they used, they did the 350, which was Bob was saying, it was the 2 inspections. So typically small projects might be 2 inspections. The problem ends up being is most are not. Most are well over 2. If you have multiple disciplines, if you have structural, mechanical, electrical in a bathroom addition, you have 2 structural inspections, probably framing and final, mechanical rough in and final, and electrical rough in and final, and you might have mechanical rough in and final, and those could be. So what they did is putting in the 40,000 by number of inspections for that first 40,000 is the fees are calculated differently on that with the change that was made maybe by the assembly. It wasn't as an addendum on the floor, so it must have been happened before the floor of the assembly, because I was at the meeting and there was no addendum there. So it must have been in the S version prior to the floor of the assembly. But if you have to compare the fees apples to apples. When you do a residential remodel under 40,000 and the fee for the original was 4 inspections for $300 and plan review 65, zoning plan review 65 for a 430. The new 2020 permit, if you compare like for like, it's 4 permits, four inspections. 4 inspections under 2020 would be at $175 a piece. Therefore, that fee is $700, not $350. Plan review would be 75, zoning plan review 75, for a total of $850. So based upon the Muni's document that they provide the assembly, it's actually a 70% increase over what the presented value in this table was for the actual permit today for that exact job. 35,000 for this one showed 5 inspections. So if you put 5 inspections in the 2020 at 175, it's 875. Plan review 175, zoning 75 for 1125 compared with what they presented at 600. So that's 87.5% increase over what they presented as what the fee would be. And that's based on exact number of inspections for that same permit for an $18,000 permit here. And this is where, you know, I talked earlier when the home builders were putting, or the building department was putting this together, is every one of these has different number of inspections and it varies quite drastically. And so when we set the fees up back in 2009, it was kind of set up as T&M so you wouldn't lose money rather than fixed fee. That's and most people that know business and engineering, fixed fee is not as great as T&M. T&M is always really nice to have. But anyway, in this one, 18,000, there's 6, 7, 8, 9 inspections for that $18,000 one. Building permit 9 times 175 is 1,575. Plan review 90, zoning plan review 75 for a total fee of 1,740 compared with what they presented at 515. This is why the community is questioning, going, wait, did that 40,000 value in there and do it by number of inspections do what the intention was? And I don't think it has. It's actually generating quite a bit more revenue. So then what we proposed was actually going to match the commercial way, which was, it's just a flat plan review fee based upon a percentage all the way up, and it just always grows depending on the size of the project, with a minimum set at the 40,000 times that plan review number, which was 360. They put in their calculation a 350 number. So what we're proposing is paying $10 more than what they provided in their calculation as saying how they could get their fees. So that's why we're saying we're actually proposing, and that number could change, but we're proposing 360 as a minimum and not paying by number of inspections to match every other entity and industry. And everybody if you permit a $40,000 project today, $40,001, you're paying less money than you are paying for a $10,000 permit if you ask for 1 inspection or 2 inspections. So then that was found out very quickly. And so then people, I've heard it, but we still turn them in at the value that we're doing, and it is what it is. But the comment is, well, then I'll just put in $45,000 for every one of my renovations. But then it was said, well, we'll find that's going on, and we'll find the people that are doing that. And it's like, that's not the approach that I like to see. I don't like to see fines. I don't like to see questions. My view is make it like everybody else. If the commercial industry starts at $0 and you pay a minimum of $525, that minimum crosses over at like $35,000 or whatever is where the minimum goes before it goes up higher. We tried to do the same thing. So the minimum was $360. If you want to make the minimum 380, whatever it can be to get what they want. But they already had it at 350 in their calculations. So to me, they already counted on getting 350. We're saying you're counting on getting 360 here, and then you're just not getting any above that. But none of their calculations showed them getting the money above the 2 inspections that they showed. So that couldn't have been on these fees in their methodology, in their calculation of what fees were making the $1 million up or whatever. Hopefully that makes sense. I mean, it's a complex issue, but, and so that's the change, and we feel we're actually giving the city more money than they thought based upon that 360 compared to 350. And then the only other changes in here was initially, the very first week that the fees came into play, I got a call with regard to an inspector that wrote up this $350 inspection for the third re-inspect. So in that case, I had heard what Bob had said before about when it was going to be administered. So I asked him, he said, yeah, it's only administered if you're going there for the third inspection without going there for any other inspection. So that's all this language did, was try to codify that so it doesn't get changed by interpretation at a later time. That I think the reason this is set, if say if you had a footing foundation write-up and you're on the third time, but you can catch that third time when you're doing the framing inspection, you shouldn't get charged the $350. Bob agreed to that, I believe, and so because they're there for a different inspection, that they could cover that third inspection under that new inspection and not get billed the $350. And so this, because it happened so quickly and it was assessed so fast, I felt we need to get ahead of that and codify that, even though we have an interpretation from Bob that justifies exactly that. And so, I mean, I think he understood it. This was just an attempt. Doesn't mean that the wording is exactly right.
Okay, Mr. Thompson, I've got some questions. I think Mr. Dunbar's got a question, and I think Mr. Dole might be wanting to chime in a bit too. So,
Actually, I have a lot of questions. I just want to hear from Mr. Dole.
Okay, go ahead.
To start with that.
So I appreciate the opportunity to speak and address these things. First, in terms of the 9,000% increase, 65.8% of the time, based on last year's permits, 2/3 of the time that price goes from $500 to $675. So to say there's a 9,000% increase, in accordance with valuation, as following the national model in our pre-2009, some will go that high. 2/3 of the time, that 500 is now 675. So in terms of putting this into perspective where those do kick in, it is disingenuous to say that large ASD, even skin and resurface, is the same as reskinning and redoing, or skinning and re-roofing Boscos, because that large roof is going to be done in phases. That inspection may be the same, but it would be poor practice on the roofer's part to skin the whole roof if they could not close it up the same day. So you'll be going out there multi-days, multi-inspections. The whole theory behind valuation as a basis for permit fees is the more work that's involved, the more inspections, but you do not get into the administrative loss and the inequities of trying to track per inspection or to create the other issues we have with the prior flat fee. So it will be the same inspection, the bigger one as done in phases. I would hope for a big one is going to be different days. Turning to the discussion of residential remodels, from the start point, this is the wrong page. This is before the amendment, so the analysis on it is lacking in terms of actual numbers that make sense.
That's what John gave me.
This is before the amendment that was that we worked with the other member on, and it's interesting in evaluating that amendment. Basically retained the status quo of per inspection under $40,000. One that Ron was the proponent of in 2009 for concern that the small projects weren't paying enough. It retains that, implementing his recommendations of inflation adjusting it and also eliminating the half-hour inspections. The hypocrisy in this room is rich. We have done exactly what AHBA called for in that realm of the per inspection for those smaller jobs, while doing it in a realm that was felt by an assembly member to help make those small jobs affordable where it made sense, but not passing on a larger burden. By the way, the financial cost, if we go to this approach, is about $130,000 that we will have to find elsewhere just for that provision alone. And looking at the commercial re-roofs, including the renovations, and again, there's no other jurisdiction that wants to draw that line in the sand, taking one out in valuation and the other one out. That's about a $170,000 bill for the cost of this. So those two provisions, you're looking at about $400,000 in terms of money to be found elsewhere to go forward. Also in the proposal, Ron touched upon the plan review, zoning plan review fees. Zoning plan review fees are required for each and every interior tenant improvement. Looking at open permits, violations, changes of use, Title 21 creates this hateful process to look at 50% of replacement cost determined, 10% of must go into bringing the property in conformance. It's as painful as it sounds. And also ADUs and other issues out there. So there are not tenant improvement projects that do not require a zoning review going forward. Looking at those things, and I only got this last night, so did not have an opportunity to provide feedback before this. This document is riddled with challenges.
And hence the reason why we are here discussing them. But Mr. Dunbar, you have some questions.
Yeah, obviously, we're seeing this for the first time too, this this proposed ordinance, and at first I thought it was one thing, but it's actually a number of things, right? It's not just roofing, it's not just small projects. So of these, there look to be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 or maybe 5 distinct proposals on here. So Bob, which of these do you agree with, and which of these are you opposed to?
Looking at these as they're proposed, the inspection fee clarification, I think the plain language covers it. I agree with none of these as having a sound basis in law, policy, or fiscal responsibility.
Rank them from the ones you hate the most to the ones you could live with the most.
Okay, I can live with the most the inspection fee clarification language.
I'm sorry, do you have to be more specific? Which of the table?
2310 Table C, I can live with the most.
Okay.
After that, there's a question of what work we're going to do for free or look for other sources of revenue on, or are we being tasked not to comply with Title 21 requirements for Table 3B. The others are all problematic in various ways, extremely. I can tell you the fiscal realities of Table 3A carries a $130,000 bill. Table the redefinitions, we initially calculate about $174,000 bill. The plan review fees is really beyond the scope of what should be done. If you want to go back and revise Title 21 to get rid of those obligations, that is the forum to do it. It's just outside the jurisdiction of a fee ordinance. All of these and how quickly they were done point to why the doctrinal source I showed at the end of my briefing suggests that this be done starting annually and then periodically. If we need to do something badly now, we can do it very badly now. If we want to do it thoughtfully to the residents and businesses of Anchorage, that takes getting some data and some thought going into it.
Okay, and I have a question too. So, Mr. Dole, do you believe that there is a difference between the re-roof idea and the roofing renovation, and that we should have some kind of distinction that's clear?
No, it is fatally flawed. Other jurisdictions do not draw that. All of it is just straight valuation. Valuation is recognized as policy-wise the best basis for fees. Even as they grow in length and dollar size, they grow into phases, you still pick up multiple inspections. I strongly disagree with this creating another local option where there is no other jurisdiction that has to create a similar local option as being good policy or science.
Okay, and Mr. Weddleton, you had
yeah, just a
comment.
Thanks, yeah, comment, because I appreciate this. I mean, a lot of respect for Bob's analysis and Ron's. You know, when we have this come to us, you know, we looked at the examples here and accepting it. I mean, I'm pretty much like the cost cause or cost payer concept that we do quite a lot. So when we made these changes to bring it more that way, you know, I'm okay with it. I know there were changes and increases that happened. But now we're hearing that there are certain projects that have really big impacts that we didn't see here and didn't anticipate. So, and that's a concern, you know. So without throwing out your whole goal, which I accept, you know, but all of a sudden, if you have a bathroom remodel or a, you know, a roof that's fairly simple, and what will used to be hundreds of dollars in permit fees is now thousands, that was unexpected. And it's like, well, how do we deal with those outliers? Do we just say, suck it up for the year? And that's, you know, I think looking like your idea, you know, let's go for a year, see how it settles, and see it makes sense in some regards. But if you're a small contractor, that year's a long time. I mean, you're really hurting, and your customers are hurting, and there'll be changes in the industry. I mean, there'll be one workaround is, you know, okay, you claim everything's $45,000 or something, or they bid and they're honest and they get permits, and their project costs, you know, 30% more than the other guy who's going to not go through the permit system. None of us want that. But when it's that big of a difference on some projects, we'll have a year of people learning workarounds. Is that possible? I mean, that's kind of where having gotten feedback from people.
I respectfully disagree. This is Bob Dole again, co-chair Weddleton. The conspicuous absence in this room is of the owners who have come. We don't have owners in here coming forward saying the sky is falling. We may have some contractors who failed in their contracts to provide the appropriate force majeure language, which was standard in what I saw in the contractors I dealt with when we dealt with the relocation of Coulis. So they may be eating costs this year because of their own business practices. Beyond that, though, we do not have we don't have the owners community up there. They are appreciative of assuring the appropriate services being provided, and a fiscal reality here that they're not paying for this on their 101 fund tax rate like they were previously. I think there are those changes there. They are nothing more in the under $40,000 residential renovation. Those are nothing more than the status quo adjusted for inflation. That's all they are. We adjusted for inflation. We got rid of the half-hour inspections, but it's exactly what AHBA told you needed to stick with when we presented this to you in the first place. On the other end, with the roofing ones, I recognize in the shift evaluation there have been some wider swings. If you look at some of the commercial ones we showed you, though, just commercial renovations, those some of those went up 2.5, 3 times in value. This body was not concerned or did not require concern about those. So I would ask the Assembly then, what is the multiplier at which point you get concerned, particularly when the owners are not the ones in here complaining?
When you say owners, you mean project of building
property owners, the ones who ultimately pay.
Well, I guess I would say that they don't necessarily get that option anyway. You just pay what they tell you to pay. And but we do have several people here from the community that I'd want to give them a chance to say something if they'd like to. But Mr. Dunbar, you've got some questions.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. So, you know, Bob, what John said was, you know, we went over, we passed this rather large ordinance that did make this kind of fundamental change in the way we're doing overall fees. But it looks like there are a couple outliers, and you've identified it. You know, 130,000 if we did this change, maybe 174,000 if we did this change, and I get those numbers are preliminary. But overall, how much additional revenue have you raised, or do you anticipate raising after this passed? So 174,000 is a big number, but if we've raised $2 million, then it's not. You know.
So, through the chair, Mr. Dunbar, my task as the building official in advising a fee structure to the Assembly is the years to average out to be revenue neutral. I can't say we'll make 2.6 million more than last year. At this point, valuation, actual construction work is up about 50% in the municipality. However, this is before coronavirus knocks the whole national economy into recession. I wouldn't bet on that. My goal, though, is to raise somewhere around 2 million or so annually in order to be revenue neutral. I'm not trying to generate profit, but my mandate is to recommend to you what gets you there. We determined this would get you there. that 300,000 to 400,000 off knocks it off, 15-20%. I was a liberal arts major, so doing this math in public is dumb.
Sure, but I mean, you gave me a
Yeah.
fairly specific estimate of 174,000 for the re-roof issue. But you're saying that's out of a total increase of 2 million. So even if we were to go through this, I get it doesn't get you exactly where you want to be, but it does. We're much closer than we were at the beginning of 2019 or at the end of 2018. My other question is, though, for Ron or for whoever else, we had examples here presented by Mr. Dole of what appeared to be what you would define as re-roofing projects that quickly became roof renovation projects. But unless I misunderstand what you said, we didn't know about it or we didn't realize it. Is that right? We, municipality, didn't know about it?
There was no, through the chair, Mr. Dunbar, there's no notification to the municipality on any of those projects. One of that they had grown into a renovation. Had we been out doing our duty to inspect, there would have been an opportunity to do that, but none of those were brought to light to us till the owner or subsequent owner complained, why weren't we doing our job out there?
If we created this re-roof and renovation dichotomy, would the inspections that you're going to do on the re-roof, are you going to do any inspections on the re-roof that would indicate there's a roof renovation?
Yes.
Or are we worried, Ron, how would we know if it's one of
Through
those?
through the policy letter, we start with the re-roofs. We wait. When a section is skinned, we concur with the condition, and as it goes sequentially, if they get into something deeper structurally, it goes to a renovation. We would inspect those, and then go up through the layers to build up till the final inspection.
So those examples you gave to me don't really, indicate that we should not do this distinction. They might be problematic, but they were prior to us doing any of those kind of inspections.
Those inspections show the necessity for inspections in the roofing community.
General.
Because there's been no notification, there's been a loss of situational awareness on our department and quality assurance on the behalf of the contractors involved. That's what those demonstrate. The renovation versus the remodel is an artificiality that does not, it ignores the complex, that what the work even required as roofs get larger. It also is contrary to the overall public policy preference for valuation over per inspection or flat fees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one way in that is.
Just a quick point.
Yeah, can I get Mr. Chudy on there, please?
Madam Chair,
So,
through the conversation about we're making more money this year, we're raising more money, I just want to illustrate a point, which is the budget for this department is flat. No positions were added. We had some salary increases that were required for the CBAs, but in essence, we're not making more money. We're just not losing as much money. The department has historically been underwritten by general fund taxes. And as Bob started his presentation explaining, the whole point of this fee increase was to bring that in line with the services provided. So I just want to make sure that that distinction is clear. This is not a money making or a revenue increasing effort. This is simply to bring revenues in line with the cost of delivering the service. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
I mean, in the case that Bob's talked about in the re-roofs, and they want to make sure they get paid for all the inspections, if we do a big re-roof and do it at $175 per inspection, then it's fine. But paying $4,000 for maybe 2 inspections is not right. So if that's the answer, is for a re-roof to pay per inspections, like if you pay the $600 fee, you get 2 or 3 inspections, and then anything above that in a re-roof permit that remains in the re-roof, then you pay at $175. Then I think the community's fine with that. It's just paying $4,000 for what we've been getting for $600, which should have been 2 inspections. I don't know when they stopped doing inspections, because I can tell you it was never intended to stop doing inspections on re-roofs. So I mean, I don't know, somewhere along the line in the last 10 years that took place, but that wasn't the intention. So the intention here is just try to we want to pay what work it costs, and not pay to make up money in another area that's been underpaid. And I don't think the roofing industry feels like it's their duty to go find who's not paying their share. They think that that's a department or an assembly definition, that we think we want to pay what we should be paying and what it costs, but not subsidize some other area of the construction industry, and that's what's happened here. And that's why I think the roofing industry is well represented in things. It's just an unintended consequence that happened, and I don't think it was ever intended that way, but they're willing to pay their share, they just don't want to overpay, and that's what's happening, and that's where we are.
I appreciate that, thank you. Yeah, we do have people from the community, just if anybody from the public wants to make a comment, that would probably be a good idea right now. So certainly we have people from the industry that you've heard the conversation, and I've seen some facial expressions. So so anyway, if there's anybody who'd like to make a few comments, please. Yes, do you want to
briefly,
Mr. Haber.
Because I cover a lot of meetings. My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I audit the public process. I live in the Valley. One striking comment that came out, I was listening attentively, was the need to have more frequent review and not wait in a scenario. Out in the Matsu Borough, they have what we call every year, several months before they deal with public hearings on the budget, a comprehensive document of rates and fees. That would mean whether it's landfill or building permits and so forth, that's what they would have. And every year, they would have that on the agenda and the public to speak. What I would encourage you to do in this regard in all the areas is to have such a document comprehensive done several months before your next approval of your budget. And on that document, it would identify the current recommendation of a fee that's being in, and what is the current one that's used in one column, and the current one that's being recommended for the next year. And then allow for a minimum of 2 public hearings, and not just if one speaks before, they should be allowed again to speak, and allow for at least 60 days for that document being introduced before you have the first public hearing, to allow for this. Because I stress this point, there's no information about this meeting that's happening right now. Some of you know about it. And who's restricted, who knows. The fact is, you're responding to a recent situation a few months ago, and I'm glad you're here, but the fact is, this more likely would not have happened if there has been more appropriate engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So yes, we want to hear from all these comments. So yes, sir, go ahead.
Well,
Just state your name.
My name is Jason Dial. I'm with Rainproof Roofing. Pretty much everything's been said here. I think industry, for the most part, agrees. We're not opposed to inspections. We were not opposed to a permit or fee increases, excuse me. The biggest problem the industry has is the roofing industry was not notified. Now I know a few associations were notified about this, Home Builders, AGC, and FOMA. Well, Home Builders is residential, so they have no concerns for commercial re-roofing. AGC takes care of state issues, not really local issues. That's a state organization. And FOMA, that's just property management. So, one, the evaluation-based fees is why we were so against this, is with what everybody's saying with the re-roof and roof renovations. Now, West High was mentioned several times. Yes, there's a lot of inspections on that, but yes, there's a cost for these inspections. So on a typical re-roof, a lot of times we're not exposing the substrate, so there's nothing there for the inspector to see. And if we are doing a larger job where we are tearing it off in portions, we were told the inspector might show up a couple times and might be a third way done with the project, and then he'll probably waive the rest of them. Well, wait a minute, it's in this evaluation, we're paying for it, right? If the inspector even gets on the roof, that's an issue. Sorry, I get nervous speaking in front of crowds. So.
You're doing good, just keep going.
Yeah, we're just, the biggest thing is we were at this point hoping for maybe just a stay, right? September, October, November, December, we're bidding work for the following year, and we were surprised with these increases. It's not a matter of how we run our businesses. It was a surprise to all of us. So we'd asked for, let's maybe just have a 4-month, 6-month stay. We come up with some common ground on an increase that works for everybody. don't think this evaluation thing's gonna work. You are gonna have circumstances where on these bigger re-roofs that we're not opposed to it, but on 90% or 68.5% of these re-roofs, I just, the industry is going to be well overpaying for the services that they're getting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I have a question for you, though. Because you do your contracts far in advance, then do you basically have contracts where you kind of shorted yourself now because you've got permitting fees that are higher than you had actually contracted? Appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else?
So I would just offer, my name is Drew Kitson with the Anchorage Home Builders Association. I started working with them just recently, and so wasn't around through last year when a lot of these were taking place. One thing that Bob had mentioned a couple of times was that AHBA, I guess, had perhaps previously supported a sort of fee per inspection at the sub $40,000 residential level. I don't know what those conversations were before and don't want to represent what that is. I can tell you that in discussions with the board, we are comfortable and like moving to an included inspection for that sub 40,000. Frankly, it just looks like it's going to be cheaper in a vast majority of instances that any of our members would engage with. It certainly seems to create some perverse incentives if you're paying substantially more. If it's going to cost you $2,000 or $3,000 for a $30,000 job and cost you a few hundred for a $40,000 job, of course you want to be doing a $40,000 job. And it just doesn't seem like that lines up with a lot of Bob's other analysis on how things should be structured overall. So one thing that had come up a couple times is it sounded like potentially there was an assembly member who had felt that really small scale renovation work and so that was sort of the explanation that was given to us when we asked about it. I believe that it was Representative or Assembly Member Zalatul. So I guess that it sounds to me like that was something the administration was never in love with, and they felt like the assembly and the home builders maybe were asking for it. And I am comfortable saying the home builders are not asking for it anymore. So if we can talk through what these actual consequences look like with MEG, and whether it was from before or after the evaluation. I think that the sheet that Ron had, he showed me this morning, he'd gotten it from Mr. Weddleton, does show sort of how at this small scale the new policy is increasing fees substantially by sort of not sharing in the benefits of what potentially the larger projects got. If it's the case that it's more expensive because it was left in the status quo and the others are cheaper because they were brought into the future, that maybe those small projects should be brought into the future too and enjoy some of those same benefits. So that's really all that I feel comfortable addressing, but particularly because the home builder's position was mentioned a couple of times, I thought I would share that.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we've got
Yep,
C.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Mr. Constant, go ahead. I do have people in the audience that do want to speak too, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'll go after. That's fine.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, ma'am, please.
I'm Tammy Wenzel from Circle Plumbing and Heating, and I wrote down things so that I wouldn't forget. I know there's been a lot of conversation about things that really have nothing to do with Circle Plumbing and Heating. We do commercial and residential. We are probably 75% residential, so that is what we're here to address. As a homeowner, I feel like I'm pretty up on what's happening because I work at Circle Plumbing and Heating. My husband is a journeyman plumber, so he sees things out in the industry. And as a homeowner, I had no idea about the fee increases. As the person who does permitting at Circle Plumbing and Heating, I had no idea about the fee increases. We found out by the free increases. I received an envelope in the mail, and I'm like, what is this? And I open it up, and we keep a credit card on file. So if one of our owners needs to come by and pick up a permit, the credit card's already here. Normally, we do all of our permitting online, and we enter the credit card number at that time. So we kind of forget about the credit card that just sits here, which no longer sits here, because in this envelope was a receipt for $350 plus $9.62 for the fee, for the credit card fee. As I'm calling, I'm emailing Gretchen, what's going on, what's happening? So she starts explaining to me, we are now on a This is a inspection that happened in January from a permit that we purchased in September, because it's residential, okay? Somebody wants to remodel their bathroom. This is a small project. They want to take out their bathtub and they want to put in a custom shower. And they also want to move their toilet just a little bit. And they want to change out their bath fan while they're at it because they want to put one in with filter black. Okay? So this is a small project. In your eyes, in our eyes, this is something big for a homeowner. We do it up. We charge for. We get permits. We charge for permits. We've never been in charge for an inspection. Maybe that was wrong on someone's part, but we've never been charged for an extra inspection ever. I've been there since 2008. So we buy a mechanical permit because there's a bath fan. We buy a plumbing permit because of the plumbing work that has to be done. Okay, so normally in the past, before January 1st, it was, so that's $300. Okay, because they were $150. So now we increase our permits to $175. That's fine. It's been a long time since we had an increase. To us, that's no big deal. The big deal is when we do this same exact bath remodel. And I'm going to read this so I don't forget because I work in the office. I'm not a plumber, okay? So now we have to buy a retro plumbing permit, a retro mechanical permit. Each inspection is going to be $175. So the inspections needed on this job that I'm talking about. Number one, underground inspection on the underground plumbing for the toilet to be moved a few inches even, and for the shower. Take out the bathtub. You're going to be moving it. You're going to put in a shower, so you're going to be moving the drain. All right? Number two, rough-in inspection on installation of the bath fan. Number three, rough-in inspection on plumbing for toilet and shower. Number four, custom drain pan inspection on the shower pan. That's a new inspection that's being required now if it's a custom shower pan. Number five, final inspection of the plumbing. Number six, final inspection of the bath fan. Even though these things are done at the same time, the same inspector comes to your job. They're never there for more than 15 minutes. They're going to look at the bath fan and they're going to look at the plumbing. So the total of this, now we went from a $300 permits on the job to $1,050 plus the credit card fees, which we don't charge our customers. Okay, so that's what we wanted you to understand from our industry. And it's not just that. You want to take your washer and dryer and you decide you want to take it out of your house and put it in your garage, take it out of your garage and put it in your house. That's a mechanical fee for the dryer vent. That's a plumbing fee for the wash machine. So the inspections are now it used to be just that, okay, fine, we buy those inspections or those permits. That's $300. But we no longer get more than one inspection. So that's no longer $300. Because it used to be that we would buy the permit, that would include 2 inspections. And that's just expected. We never, like I said, no one ever said any different, no one ever charged us any different. So we just wanted everyone to be aware that what this is going to cause in our industry are more handymans doing work that they're not qualified to do, that they do not get permits to do, or more plumbing companies that aren't going to do what they're supposed to do as far as getting the permits and the inspections. We already see that when we go out and do work. We believe in our office that this is going to cause that to happen even more. Because if I go to the homeowner that I give a bid to, now on our bids we put it's only good for 30 days. So if we give a bid to someone in December for this job right here, and they call us tomorrow and say, hey, we decided to go ahead for it, we're going to have to say, I'm sorry. We have to reevaluate. We have to increase this. This is going to increase by $1,050. Or it won't be quite that much because, of course, we take off what we'd already put on the print permit, but almost $1,000. This is going to have to increase. I'm sorry. So a homeowner is going to be like, you're kidding me. And they have no idea. They have no idea about these increases. How would they know? I didn't know as a homeowner. I didn't know as a person who gets permits at our office until I'm emailing Gretchen what's happening? And so that's when I asked her, please send over the information. And our company and our owners are pretty involved usually. I mean, we have spoke at meetings like this before, for instance, when they were talking about bidding processes and who was going to be allowed to bid. Our company with ownership, they were here. And they would have been here today, unfortunately, they're out of town. So I'm here. But so they just wanted you to be aware of how, I've heard about the roofing. It's not going to affect us like it is them, but it is going to affect homeowners just trying to do a simple bathroom model and move their washer and dryer.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wiesel. So, thank you. And Mr. Dole, I'm sure you want to comment. So.
Briefly, we've had no policy change on inspections. I wish the building official had been made aware of that before here. We might have resolved it faster. I do not for a second, though, believe Circle will take any shortcuts or change business because of this. Y'all have too stellar a record. And the professional company, y'all don't see people.
Yeah, we're not.
But this is one, we have had no change in policy, so that is one where I don't think is frankly right for assembly attention versus determining what happened here. Traditionally, a plumbing and mechanical, they are the same inspectors because how we merged them. Doing one inspection does charges one fee, so I'm really surprised on that. Just counting that though, and you all rightfully identified the permitted work that needed to be done. I count about 3 or 4 inspections in there that I would expect to see, just looking at that there. And at the half-hour inspections did go away.
We were never charged a half-an-hour inspection. I didn't even know that was a thing until Brent.
Sorry, I'll take the permit. So, but yeah.
The reason why what's going on is they're taking them out of the retro when they have multiple disciplines and putting it into the residential remodel permit that we're talking about here today. And this new calculating it just like we do from 40,000 up will solve her problem as well. Because they combine the two. They don't count them as retros as much as they used to. They've combined them if it's multiple disciplines, because electrical's in there too.
Yeah, to extend the move to extend the meeting by 10 minutes.
Second.
So any objection? All right, so we are moving to extend 10 minutes.
Madam Chair, I'd also want to note that I know there were a couple people who were thinking about, I don't think anticipating us getting to 3A. I don't want to discuss the marijuana issues further. I want to continue to discuss this if possible.
So yes, if you were here for something related to the discussion on possible updates to marijuana, we will not get to that this morning. So feel free to stay or leave as you need to. But anyway, we will continue this discussion for a few more minutes.
And I might just chime in on that because poor Jeff sat through the whole meeting. I think maybe we should take that off of ongoing business. And that was my fault.
Make it as specific.
Because I didn't expect, we had Jan, people are coming just because of that. Wisely, I hadn't really thought about that.
All right, well, we'll hopefully do a better job on the
Thanks,
agenda
Jeff.
next time. But anyway, I did see another hand back in the back. Yes, sir.
Sure. I'm Steve Collins with DT Roofing. I'm responsible for coming down here, getting the permits and closing them out and whatnot. We were unaware of the changes till Rainproof came down 1st of January and then notified us, and then we did the same thing. We scrambled to say, what do we need? What do we got to call for jobs coming up this spring? That's neither here nor there now. What we're going forward here is we've always had in our bid process, we're going to do this, and this for you, including a permit, and it's going to be labor and materials. Well, now what we've got to do is move forward. It's going to be this, and this, labor, materials, and you need permit per AO XYZ. We tell you flat, it's going to be this much. And you made the comment, no building owner, you're here. Well, they don't know about it yet, but they will. So you're going to hear from them. But that also tells that building owner when he sees XYZ's roofing company, labor and materials, hey, does that include a permit? And there's some guys out there doing it, the wrong way. You saw, pictures of it. So, and in the past 10, 12 years I've been doing this, $500 commercial re-roof, I can't remember one time, maybe I'm wrong, 99 times out of 100 anyway, I don't think that inspector gets on the roof. So we've been overpaying for, 10, 12 years. So now we're reversing it, $500 permit. We did your roof, sir, the Boscos. I'd like to say it's gonna last forever, it's not. One day you're gonna need one. Right? And what used to be $500 or with inflation could now be $600, $700, $800. It's not that big of a roof, but that's gonna be about $3,000. And as a business owner, we're gonna have to pass that on to you. And same thing, we're just taking it down to the structure and putting the roof membrane back on. Doing inspection, we've had to do up till now, maybe that's changing, is at best a drive-by seeing that our trucks are gone and we're done with it. So I don't know how the whole inspection process is gonna change to get to the value, or if that is gonna change, maybe one of the T&M is honestly the best for us and best for the building owners, because right now, it's excessive. What we're getting.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, Mr. Peterson, I got Mr. Constant online too that's got a question, and then we'll get to Mr. Peterson. So go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation to the building official's comments about a bounty regarding roofing issues, I assure you, Bob, should a bounty proposal make it in, I will be amending that bounty to $100 for every choke cherry that's removed.
Thank you, Mr. Constant.
Is that retroactive? Do I get $300?
So, Mr. Peterson, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So typically, in other cities besides Anchorage, do the inspectors get up on the roof to do an inspection, or are they just driving by and say, hey, looking good, fellas? I don't know. I'm not a roofer, so.
Through the chair, Mr. Peterson, about a quarter of the jurisdictions have discovered remote video inspection. There's already a roofer up there with a phone that has they basically FaceTime it. So they can do it that way. Clark County, maybe 10% of the jurisdictions are using drones for the bigger commercial ones. I'm nervous about licensing drone operators, given the skills of some of my inspectors. We'll provide appropriate personal protective equipment for the roofers if we are going to have a drone scream in between them. And but overwhelmingly, there is some level of inspection. That's why I looked at that with shock and awe.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So, video inspection is going to be the new normal?
Through the chair, Mr. Pearson, we just rolled out for re-inspections, and my intent is these new inspections to include those. There's some things you can only easily do hands-on, particularly in the electrical field, where you're going circuit to circuit to circuit around the building. I think there's great opportunity for it in the longer run, though, for quicker customer service to the builders or the contractors there, and also reducing our cost imprint. And as you know, 95% of my budget is salary. So if I can reduce the need for more inspectors, that's huge.
Thank you.
The policy you just wrote didn't say that. Are we going to be able to send you videos instead and be able to move on?
As I've mentioned with folks, it would actually be through Teams. It would be a live interaction with the inspector, FaceTiming. So if there's something this is Bob Bill again, sorry about that, team, that you needed to explain what you were looking at, or if you need to zoom in on something or clarify something. But as we're doing this with the other video inspections, it is a live interaction with an inspector, probably the lead, so they have a screen this big rather than trying to look at it on a cell phone.
So you say they're doing video inspections right now. I've never seen one.
Well, they're really.
It sounds like a great possibility. I'm just.
I signed the policy letter to authorize re-inspections on Monday, after the 30-day notice went out for that. That's where we're starting as a pilot program.
30-day notice went out on video inspections.
Yes.
Did anybody see that? I've never seen that. That's why I'm so shocked. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. It sounds like it could be a really cool, good thing.
Briefly, through the chair, we sent it back in October and November, and due to IT issues, drug our feet a little bit actually going live.
Thank you. Well, maybe we need some notifications sent again or something. But, okay, we just have like 2 minutes and we need to wrap this up. But anyway, okay.
Hi,
Yes.
my name is Nestor Lynn. I'm with Consolidated Enterprises. We're a general contractor. We specialize in commercial re-roof projects. We have the dubious distinction of being the general contractor at West High. We're installing the roof. We also had in Naka Valley a couple years ago 2 pre-64 earthquake projects. Each section of the roof we're doing is requiring 3 inspections by the city. we've probably done 8 or 9 school district projects in the last 3 years. The school district doesn't use the $500 permit fee cost. They use the commercial. So it's not like the city's upside down, and there's a lot of inspections. I understand the cost is exorbitant. And we would like to see the fee structure set up so it's covering the cost. But the school district pays full boat on the value of the project, whereas when you permit something, you really only have to pay for the value of the materials and the labor. What you probably see is the school district start coming to me and saying, what is the actual value of the labor and the materials? We're only going to buy a permit for that value and cut thousands of dollars out of the budget to counteract the additional fees that you're talking about. I mean, there's a lot of unintended consequences that maybe weren't thought about in that way. And yes, you mentioned Back to the Future, the new perfect permit fee structure. It's exactly what I always thought it was supposed to be, right? You tear the roof off, the inspector comes out and looks at the structure. It's going to require eyes on. You're going to have to look at nailing patterns, or they look at welds. There's a lot of things they have to see with their eyes. You know, King Tech last year, we actually found a dishwasher vent that was tied into the grease hoods. Right? There you go. You're blowing hot water vapor into hot grease. Somebody needed to be there to see that, and we corrected that condition. So, but what happens most of the time is the inspectors come out, they look at the deck the first day you tear the roof off, and they say, "Don't call me until you're done." And we'll have 30 or 40 days throughout the summer where we'll have the roof open, and they won't see anything unless we call them to look at something. You know, larger projects like I said, the school district projects we do, there's a mechanical inspector, there's an electrical inspector. There's multiple inspectors out there looking at all that stuff, catching it, but, you know, this seems like it was thrust upon the roofing community to cover all trades that are putting costs on the building safety department. And we feel that whatever 900 or 9,000 or 900 or 1,000% increase on our fees to cover everybody else seems a bit unfair. It seems like, when I asked Bob if he could demonstrate how the roofing industry wasn't paying their fair share, his answer, probably rightfully so, is SAP's 4-letter word. I can't give you that data because we don't have access to it, which is why we talked about looking at it a year later. But in the meantime, a bunch of us have private jobs where, again, we weren't informed that there was going to be a fee increase. We put something out there. We do allow for material price increases in a lot of our proposals. The permit fees isn't anything that we've ever had to worry about for years. So we're kind of stuck. In a lot of cases, you're stuck, I'm stuck, you're stuck. That's why Jason was asking for like a 4-month, stay, or some of the projects we already have under contract to be allowed to be done under the old permit. Most of my jobs, we're not going to take it out. We're going to strictly membrane, leave the existing insulation. The inspector's not going to look at the structure at all, which is the first line of this new policy. Is it's after the earthquake, it's incumbent upon building safety to look at the structures now to see if they're still sound. We're just taking the membrane out.
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments, and we are running out of time, but I don't like leaving anything really hanging. But I think there'll be, at least from my perspective, I would like to see more conversation on this and figure out how we really do balance this out. And I certainly appreciate everyone who came to listen, comment, and I know some people have spoken directly to Mr. Weddleton, so that's been helpful as well. So I guess at this point, since we've run out of time on this committee meeting, suggestions for next meeting, or there might be some offline conversation about how we can try to really get in and start to figure out where the best way forward is with this. But I think there are some issues out there that need to be dealt with, and certainly some rational concerns that we probably ought to figure out how to balance. So any other comments from committee members? Okay, we're past time. We are. So, anyway, thank you. We're adjourned.